All right, 1 second here. I just came across this video accidentally. I was watching another video, and because obviously I've been listening to Carmelo Anthony stuff, this other video came across my autoplay, oddly enough. So I want to react to it because I only got like 5 minutes into it, and it was like, oh, okay. Let me react to this real quick. So let me fire it up. All right, here we go. So this is a video from Sabby Sabs. I follow some of her stuff on my other account. Matter of fact, because of some of the stuff, let's go ahead and give her a subscribe. There we go. Help that 400K become achievable, Sabby. So here she has a lawyer explains Carmelo Anthony verdict. It's only 30 minutes. I'm probably gonna mostly let this play because I gotta go get my kids here in a little bit. Pick them up from nap time. But let's react to it. All right, we're gonna do this live. It's kind of a part two to my video earlier, but yeah, let's just let it go.
Welcome to Sabby Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. My special guest today is a Harvard-trained lawyer. His name is David Otunga. We have quite a bit to discuss. David, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we have quite a bit to talk about because, ever since this Carmelo Anthony verdict, a lot of people are asking questions. They're asking questions about self-defense. They're asking questions about manslaughter versus capital murder. And so I want to start with self-defense. So for those who are not aware, I've discussed this before on the show, but Carmelo Anthony was accused of capital murder, from what I understand. So in the state of Texas,
this issue right here is why I wanted to do a video, because I find it very interesting, this lawyer's definitions of things, and especially when it comes to the state of Texas. Again, I probably only got maybe like 5 minutes into this. I can't really tell. Yeah, less than 1 minute. So yeah, I probably got a couple minutes into this, and I'm just like, no, I got to react to this live. So I'll tell you when we get to the part where I caught up. Again, I have to pause this for copyright reasons, because if you just mirror someone else's video, you can get in trouble. But she may not do that because she's a good content creator. Shout out to Sabby. All right, here we go.
they don't have first degree murder, but they have capital murder, which I think is essentially similar there. And he was found guilty, and he was sentenced to over 33 years. Carmelo Anthony said that he was defending himself. That was his statement that he gave to the police officer when he was arrested. And this involves the killing of Austin Metcalf. So these were two teenage boys that were at a track meet, and things definitely terribly went wrong. And so I want to start with the self-defense. What exactly does the law say about self-defense, especially in this type of incident?
And for those that don't know, usually self-defense is more popular in the gun-toting states, right? Like the castle doctrine and the right to retreat or not retreat and things of that nature. So keep that in mind as you listen to this guy's breakdown.
Sure. First, I just want to make one clarification. I don't believe that he was charged with capital murder, because as capital murder would have required the death penalty, or well, not required, but he would have been eligible for the death penalty. It wasn't the case here, as he was 17 when this did occur, even though he was tried as an adult. But in Texas, they do murder a little bit differently. So the first degree murder doesn't require intention or planning, rather, like no premeditation. It's just that somebody intended or knowingly committed the murder or killed somebody else. So it's a bit of a unique distinction. But for self-defense, now it comes down to the individual has to reasonably believe that their life was in danger, or they're in danger of serious bodily harm, to where the only way to protect themselves was to commit serious bodily harm or death on somebody else. Then it would be self-defense, but they have to reasonably believe that their life was in danger. And so that's the difference. And was that belief reasonable in this case?
And that's always the thing. how do you prove that you reasonably thought that, right? Like that's kind of always subjective. This is brought up in the Ahmaud Arbery case too, as far as like, did Ahmaud have a reasonable reason to think that he was cornered, despite the fact that he was not in a building when the McMichaels, um, you know, uh, interacted with him on the street, right? Because they're like, oh, you're out in the open, you can go in any direction, you can literally run. And the prosecution made the case of like, yeah, you can run, but they had guns. Like, you're not going to outrun a bullet. So you can feel cornered if they're close enough to you with weapons to where it's like, yeah, you are cornered, right? Because like the fact of a bullet can have such a has such a good range on it that you can't outrun it and you can't get away from it. Like, you can be cornered even though you're out in the open and there's plenty of exits, um per se, when they come up to you. And that was kind of already defined, like, yeah, you can be cornered out in the open, right? Like, this is another reason why this case is so important, because it's like, oh, he could have just ran away and like there was no corners of the tent. Like, that doesn't matter. You can be cornered out in the open, despite the fact that you have quote unquote exits available to you. Right. So keep that. So that is there is a legal precedent that defines that. So,
And there's been a lot, a lot of questions about that, in that Austin Metcalf was not armed. And so was Carmelo Anthony legally justified in using deadly force when the other individual was not using deadly force?
damn, I hate this so much. Stop, YouTube.
This is why I wanted to talk to a lawyer about this, because again, I think I saw a number of videos before the verdict happened that were on social media, and there were different statements that were made by people about what the surveillance video actually showed. Some people said the video was kind of blurry, so they couldn't see everything. Some people said, well, I could see exactly what was on the video. And one of the claims that was made was that Austin and his brother tried to jump Karmelo. And
that's why we need the video, right? Because there's too many, oh, this happened, that happened, that are in direct conflict with each other. Like, oh, I could see it, Karmelo got jumped. Oh no, Karmelo didn't. We couldn't tell what was going on. We just saw Karmelo run, right? Like, you can go, like, if you see Karmelo get jumped, it's self-defense, open and shut case. But if you just see that some blobs are interacting and then one blob runs away and oh, that's Karmelo, then yeah, you can sit there and go, yeah, sure, guilty of first-degree murder, right, or capital murder, whatever the Texas statute is. So, like, no, we need to see the 4K footage that everyone says that you can clearly see what happens. But again, the fact that they're not releasing it, and someone else brought this up in another comment section. It's like, yeah, I know that we're trying to protect minors here, but at the same time, this case is very public, and we didn't keep Carmelo's name out of this either. Like, they could have just said, Texas teen stabs another teen, it's under investigation, right? But no, they put Karmelo, they put his name and face out there, and someone said, oh, well, no, that's because of the crime. They're trying him in as an adult. It's like, okay, well, that may be true, but like, look at the scenario here, right? He stabs him one time in the chest. People keep adding one video I saw said like he carved his heart out. It's like, are you serious? This is from a lawyer, by the way. He said that. I'll react to that video later. I got that in my queue. But like this wasn't a situation that really needed national news attention, to be honest with you, but it did. So it's like, all right, well, if we're gonna drag Carmelo's name and face through the mud, let's go ahead and put everybody else out there too. And this was also brought up, that notice how when Austin got stabbed, the family immediately ran to the news. They didn't go to the police. They didn't lawyer up. They didn't do anything like that. They immediately got out to the news and were like, "Oh, we were just standing there, and then this savage black beast stabbed my brother, and I was holding him in my arms, and I just didn't know what to do." Right? And then like you see people who saw the video says like, yeah, none of that happened. There's evidence that Hunter wasn't even standing next to his brother during the incident at all at any point. Like, he saw his brother get stabbed, but then he was just like with some other people. So again, release the footage, because we need to flesh all this stuff out. But again, we're probably gonna have to wait for some little teenager to go around the algorithm and then mirror it and then do all this other stuff so that it doesn't get blocked. But when this footage comes out, because I know it will, it's only a matter of time. That's why I'm gonna keep this kind of case open, for the case of public opinion open. Because I'm not done with this, because there's too many red flags here for me to kind of let this go and just be like, well, all right, he was found guilty. I guess he did it. Let's move on. There's way too many red flags, and this country has a history of pulling BS in these kind of scenarios for me just to go like, we are wrong. And again, I still say guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of murder. Right. And the murder charge is what we're discussing here. We're not discussing, did Karmelo stab him? We already know that. Karmelo admitted it. Like, that's not up for discussion. What we are discussing is, did he murder him, or was this self-defense? That is the question that we're trying to answer. Okay. So for anybody who's confused about that, like, did Karmelo act in self-defense in stabbing Austin Metcalf? That is the question. Okay. Now, yes, Karmelo's actions led to Austin's death, so we can say manslaughter. But if we're going to say self-defense wipes the slate clean, then we need to know, was he jumped or was he not? Because if he was jumped, then yeah, Karmelo walks free. If he was not jumped, then we can probably say manslaughter, or we need to figure out what happened so that we can actively say and conclusively say, yes, the jury got it right. This was murder one, or capital murder, however Texas views that offense.
And I don't know. Again, like, they haven't released that video footage. I find that to be interesting.
Same.
So I haven't actually watched the video. If, let's say that did happen, if someone is being jumped by multiple people, in the case of self-defense, would they be allowed to use deadly force in that case?
That certainly factors in. And again, each case is different. But the fact that you have multiple people, on one side and, only one person on the other, that certainly raises the chance that there could be serious bodily harm. It makes it much more reasonable, because that's all what this turns on is, was it reasonable for him to use deadly force?
Exactly.
And with two people, that makes it more likely, but still, it's an uphill battle for the defense. I'll be honest with you, right off, like when I heard about this case and heard the facts on it. Now, I'm a defense attorney. The facts aren't necessarily in Karmelo's favor here. In fact, they're not. So this is a very uphill battle for the defense.
Depends on how you look at that. What does the video say? Because again, just off of he said, she said, yeah, it is an uphill battle. You are at the was it threshold of burden of proof or something like that. But the video will tell us everything we need to know. I still agree with Sabrina on this. Like, they need to release the video.
And in particularly for proving that this was self-defense. Because again, the other two were unarmed, and really it's being reported as one-on-one. However, like you said, we know from the statements, there actually probably was more people involved, and at least the twin brother, Hunter.
And that cannot be ignored. I don't care what they say. That cannot be ignored. We can't just move on from that detail.
Hunter Metcalf was there with Austin. But yeah, that definitely factors in and can make it more reasonable. Does it make it reasonable for deadly force? That I'm not so sure of, but it definitely puts it more towards that side of the scale as opposed to it being one-on-one.
Does the self-defense have to be proportionate in that manner?
Yes. And that's the other thing too, is the force that you meet it with has to be commensurate. So proportional. So if this would be a totally different story if Austin Metcalf, the victim, if he had a weapon of some kind, then yes, this could be met with deadly force. But the other problem is there isn't even really evidence that there were any punches or violence. Now, it was reported that there was some kind of a touching. It's been reported as a shove. And some people said it was hard. Some people said it wasn't even that hard of a shove. But just a shove, I don't know if that, could reasonably put somebody in fear of their life. Definitely not to retaliate with a deadly weapon. That's,
again, it matters if you're being jumped. If it's 4-on-1, it doesn't matter if they're unarmed. You are at a severe disadvantage. It's already been established that Karmelo had a size disadvantage against Austin and Hunter, right? And again, we have people who are allegedly lying on the witness stand or lying about what happened because there's some conflicts between the responding officer's affidavit and what was being said in court, right? So That needs to be fleshed out. We can't ignore that detail either. Was the response, relative? Like if it's 4-on-1, you're not going to get a fair response, right? Like the one can never even the playing field when you're outnumbered in an unarmed situation. Like the evening out is that the one person is armed versus the 4 unarmed. That's how that works, right? So if Karmelo was being jumped, him having a knife does not mean that he's at this severe advantage, right? A gun, even still. But it's not like 2 people or 3 people were chasing Carmelo Anthony, and then he, hopped into a Humvee with an automatic weapon on the back and started mowing people down. Then being like, oh, well, he was outnumbered. So, okay, yeah, something like that. Obviously, yeah, excessive use of force. Or, oh, he had a grenade or something and threw it into a crowd, or threw it into the people assailing him, and 9 people got killed. Right? Like, no, this isn't that kind of situation. Like reasonable discernment also needs to be used in these situations, right? Like we can't just sit here and be like, oh, well, he had a knife and they were unarmed, therefore it's not even Steven. Like, no, if you're outnumbered, you can have a weapon which evens more evens playing the field, more evenly makes the playing field even. If you know what I'm trying to say. But that still doesn't mean that you're not at a disadvantage, right? I mean, the anti-gun people say this all the time whenever some unarmed assailant takes out a guy with a gun, and they're like, see, just because you have a gun, or you don't need to have a gun to take out somebody with a gun, right? They say some of that dumb stuff. Well, okay, then let's look at it here. Well, if that's the case, then that means that just because Carmelo had a weapon doesn't mean that, he had an advantage. You see how that works? It's like this is what happens when you let your racism back you into a corner that you can't get out of, right? Then you start contradicting yourself in other areas. But anyway,
that's where the problem lies here.
Yeah, see, I think it's important for people to know what the law says. And we've heard I've heard a lot of different stories about what happened that day. And the fact that they did not release the surveillance footage, I can't say this is what I saw, so this is what I know. Like we can't see the video footage. Now, I want to go back to this part about proportionate.
Oh, come on, YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So to make a comparison, let's go back to Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely. This was the incident that took place on New York City subway. Jordan Neely got onto the subway and apparently was making death threats. Apparently, he was talking to himself. And Jordan Neely has a history of mental illness, right? Now, the people on the train don't know that. But I've seen this happen. Like if you take a New York City subway, we've seen some things. So I've seen this happen before. And Daniel Penny's defense was he felt he had to get up and stop Jordan Neely from doing what he said he wanted to do, to, I guess, kill everybody on that train. Jordan Neely didn't touch anyone. So in that case, how is it that Daniel Penny was found not guilty for killing Jordan Neely? For those who don't know, he basically put him like in a chokehold for killing Jordan Neely when Jordan Neely did not touch anyone. How is that seen proportionate?
Yeah, and that was a tough case too. I've got my opinions on that as well. In that case, you're exactly right. Is Jordan Neely hadn't?
I hate to say I'm getting some coon energy. I'm hearing some tap dance. I'm like, you see, it's like, oh, somebody's still trying to get invited. Is somebody still trying to get it invited to the lawyers' luncheon? Like, oh, we'll see what happened. It sounds like go ahead and say it. Well, the difference is that the victim was black instead of white. That's like, go ahead and say it out loud. It's okay. Say it out loud. Like, well, no one cares when the victim's black. Like, go ahead and say it.
Touched anybody. However, the witnesses on the subway, they did say that they felt they were in fear. They didn't know what was going to happen. Daniel Penny, I guess, felt the same way. He did not use a weapon, so it was more hand-to-hand combat. However, he did use a chokehold maneuver that ended up being lethal. To me, that seems like it fits more clearly into manslaughter, where he may not have intended.
Yep. See, you can make that argument. But again, okay, fear for your life. Again, he didn't attack anyone. He was just saying stuff. See, we're getting into a little bit different territory. But if we want to try to make the apples to apples comparison, you're not making a good one.
To kill Jordan Neely. However, his conduct was reckless because he should have known and was trained enough to do the maneuver. And me being a professional wrestler, I have unique experience with this, that I know those particular chokeholds can be very lethal, and if applied too long. But it seemed like it fit more clearly into manslaughter. Which, if
wait, you just said that if he knew what he was doing, right? Now Karmelo knew what he was doing too. So how is Karmelo guilty and Daniel isn't? If both people knew that their actions can lead to the death of someone else, how is one manslaughter and one murder? Make that make sense. And again, Daniel Penny was not attacked. Daniel Penny was trying to jump out in front of something to prevent actions from happening. Like let's keep certain details straight here.
If I'm being honest with you, I kind of feel like that more fit this scenario with Carmelo Anthony. Is his conduct seemed like it was more reckless than intentionally trying to kill Austin Metcalf. And even by his statements after that, like asking if Austin was going to be okay. Just me hearing the facts, it seemed like it fit more neatly into manslaughter. And again, this knife, it was a lethal weapon, but we were just hearing how it was described as it was a knife. You initially think it's like a kitchen knife or a hunting knife. It was a pocket knife that, could be concealed in his hand. So it wasn't a giant knife. So it's conceivable that Carmelo Anthony, maybe did not know that this was going to cause death. He might have thought this might have just incapacitated him or enough.
Yeah, that is plausible, but there's no way of really knowing that, right? Now, again, you can look at it like, okay, he stabbed him once in the heart. Like, that is true, right? It's like just stick it in his body, send a message, kind of back off. There is that. I know a lot of people don't understand how that works, but that is plausible.
For him to run away, because that's what the witnesses said also is, once he reached out and defended himself with the knife, he threw it and ran. And I think that's another part here too, is that he didn't stab him more than once. It seemed this is the part that kind of fit with, maybe self-defense, is that he just reached out one time and struck and then ran away.
Exactly. That detail matters. I want everybody to remember this part of the video. How far are we into this? 22 minutes? Okay. 22 minutes, going into 23 minutes. Remember that detail, because I'm going to cover Matt Walsh and this other lawyer who got something to say about Carmelo Anthony.
However, it was with lethal force. So again, this is why I kind of feel like it.
Sorry, Carmelo Anthony and his actions as to what things were going on.
It could be termed as reckless, or you should have known better, but more manslaughter than actual murder.
So why do you feel he was charged with murder and not manslaughter?
Well, they're always going to go for the top charge, and the elements. I mean, they could be debated here, and he ended up getting convicted of murder, and that's what the jury. They felt that this was intentional and knowing, and that's the other part of it, though.
Wrong. Again, if the jury was given specific instructions on a certain thing, then they have to rule on that. Again, I've learned this from the previous trials I've mentioned. If the judge will literally give instructions saying, "Hey, this is what the definition is. This is what the law says. Does what happened fit this to the best of your knowledge? Okay, go and deliberate." So sometimes it doesn't always fit, but the jury just has to make that call and then go from there. So saying that, oh, well, this was absolutely undeniable, it's like, no, the jury usually your jury has to do it. Then if, like I said, it always has to be unanimous. But reasonable doubt comes down to how does the jury feel about the certain evidence, of which the law is very specific, saying this is what it is, yes or no, right? And again, there can be a lot of gray area, but it's for the jury to decide which way that goes when it comes to gray area, right? So like I said, like we have a good system, but like let's not act like oh, a jury found you guilty, so then therefore you're, guilty of a heinous crime. Sometimes the law will just say, this more closely goes in this direction, even though that's not what happened. But the language that we have to describe it mostly goes in this direction. So then therefore this is what it is, right? Again, like this is how guilty people walk free and innocent people go to prison, right? If you want to talk about what it is that we're actually discussing here.
Is there was an intentional act. And he knowingly did this. He admitted so right after the fact with the security guard or the police officer, whoever it was. They said, I'm with the alleged suspect. And he said, not alleged, I did it. And so it could have been even something as simple as that statement that stuck in jurors' minds. Because when you go back and you read the jury instructions, it's a pretty narrow definition of murder, either knowingly or intentionally causing the death of another. So it does fit.
Okay, good. Right there is the issue. Okay, I'll let this play again. Like you said, that the definition is narrow. Like, did you do something knowingly to cause death? You can usually never prove that, sort of, unless there's other areas. But in this particular case, if Karmelo said, I meant to stab him, and you know that stabbing can cause death, that can fall into the category of murder as it's defined by law. But you also know that someone can survive a stabbing, right? Like, did Karmelo know that he stabbed him in the heart, or was that just the first available spot from, whatever was going on? We don't know. We need the video footage that they don't want to release to us. But just because you know that somebody can die from stabbing doesn't mean that you intended to kill them, because you also know that somebody can survive a stabbing, just like somebody can survive a gunshot wound, right? I mean, police do it all the time. Shoot the suspect, minister some first aid, boom, there they go. Yeah, you're going to prison, but, you got a couple of bullet holes in you because, I don't know, you shot at the cops or you resisted arrest or caused, danger to an officer or whatever. But that right there is the part that people don't know about and that needs to be discussed is, did he stab him with the intent to kill, or did he stab him with the intent to get him off of it? And the fact that he only stabbed him once is a very, very good indicator as to what his intentions were. That's the part people want to keep looking over. And that's the part that kind of exposes, one of the parts that exposes the racism.
Into that. And that was the first jury instruction listed.
Here we go again with this.
That's interesting. I want to come back to the jury in just a second, but I want to go back to the defense for a minute. The defense, to me, one of the things that I thought was odd is that it seemed like the one witness that they had testified and said that Karmelo was the one who actually initiated the incident. First of all, why do you believe the defense only had this one witness from what I read? And how did they think that would actually help Karmelo to have this person? It seemed very weird to me. And I wonder, were they actually trying to win in that regard? What do you think their strategy was?
This is interesting.
I wonder the same thing. I'll be honest. I assume the defense attorney, had good intentions, but his methods would have been very different from my own.
And this right here is where it's like, did the defense throw the case? Right. And again, we already have personal connections between the judge, prosecutor, and the defense team or the defense lawyer. So again, this kind of goes into this is plausible. Let's not act like it isn't. This is plausible. There are still good old boy networks for those who want to live in denial about that.
I think there must be a lot that we're unaware of, because I was very, very confused by the whole defensive strategy. Yes, and the witnesses called, or the lack of witnesses thereof, because I didn't really feel like they put forth the best case possible. And I was, as it was happening in real time, I was trying to give them a pass in that I assumed that Karmelo Anthony was going to take the stand and that was going to clear everything up. But that did not happen, which really left me befuddled, because in a case like this, okay, so normally it's usually common practice where an attorney doesn't want their client, if they're being tried for murder, they don't necessarily want them to take the stand because it could open them up to cross-examination and having them being painted in a very bad light. It's dangerous. You don't know how your client is going to perform on the stand, except if it's self-defense. This is an affirmative defense in some states. So like you need your client to testify to why they reasonably felt they were in fear for their life. Because that's all this turns on. He admitted to the killing. We know that. So this would be murder, except if it was legally justified. The only way to prove it's legally justified is you have to show that you had a reasonable belief, that it was reasonable, that your life was in danger. That's what the jury wants to hear. So the only person who can say that, or the best person to say that, is the defendant, him or herself. You can have other witnesses testify. If you have strong witnesses that testified, this was not the case, but that testified that they were gang.
Now, also remember this. We covered this in the part one. Karmelo's parents even took advice that Karmelo should, or that the family should switch defense lawyers. Right? Instead of having a black defense lawyer, take a white defense lawyer. And the black defense lawyer is the one who said take it to trial. So we know Karmelo, aka his parents, were probably told, should Karmelo take the stand? And I wouldn't doubt the defense lawyer said, no, don't say anything. Again, if the defense lawyer was on the take, that would make sense. But if not, then yeah, that does make sense. It's like why didn't Karmelo plead his case? Like he would be the perfect one to do such.
Up on him, they're much bigger than Karmelo. It was him against a group of people. What it felt like there, he was nervous, he was scared, but nobody testified to that. We didn't hear anything like that. So I cannot figure out why they didn't have him take the stand. Because another big question, I know I had it, I'm sure the jury had it too if it was me, why did he have a knife with him at a track meet in the first place? This is a school track meet. I mean, it's not illegal to carry a knife, but why did he have a knife at a track meet? And that could have been explained in a number of ways. It could be to clean the dirt out of his cleats or something. Maybe that's something that he just happened to have in his bag. But I don't know. It's speculation. Nobody said this. We didn't hear this from him. And I think that was, I think that played more of a part than people realize. And with the jury is juries tend to want to hear from the defendant, especially if it's self-defense, because it's much easier for them to understand and put themselves in his shoes if he gets up there and testifies to how scared he was, what his thought process was. That's a main part. If he felt it, for him to explain in his own words, he thought this was the only way out, or he wasn't intending to kill him. Maybe he just intended to cut him. It went deeper than he thought. I've also heard, now these are rumors, but that people were saying, and again, this is online, you take this with a grain of salt, but that Austin, allegedly was coming at him with such force that he kind of drove himself into the knife. I don't know that to be true or not. But if that did indeed happen, we would have had to hear that from Karmelo. That could have been powerful, but we didn't hear anything like that. So,
all right, we're gonna leave it there. Yeah. I mean, even in the Ahmaud Arbery case, Travis McMichael took the stand and tried to plead his case as to why he killed Ahmaud Arbery, thinking like, "Oh, we're protecting our neighborhood," right? And they didn't have the you never have to take the stand as a defendant, but you have the option to. So yeah, I don't know why the defense team didn't have Karmelo testify, right? It's like, hey, just tell us your perspective and go, right? Or just ask him the questions that would reveal that story, and they didn't do it. So again, there's evidence, there's evidence that the defense was on the take, that this was a good old boy network. And historically speaking, we have cases like this where the prosecution, the defense, and the judge are all friends, and there's the incident between a white and a black, and the black person is trying to fighting for their life in court, and then just magically they end up guilty. Then you find out that their cousins or their in-laws, or they've been childhood friends, amongst all parties involved as far as the legal representatives, and it's like, oh yeah, you had no chance, right? Like the judge and the defense attorney are in-laws, or second cousins or first cousins or whatever. It's like, yeah, you were going to jail. You were dead on arrival, right? So anyway, yeah, like these situations still do happen, right? Not much has changed in our American societal system and social networks. But anyway, I'm gonna let this. We're gonna pause right here. I'm gonna come back to this because I got stuff to do. So we will continue this some other time. This has been John's opinion. Thanks. I know I had to get this video. I had to do this stream just to kind of put it out there in live time. But I'm gonna put this on pause and I'll come back. All right. This has been John's opinion. I'm John.